Welcome to The Explainer. You know, it's kind of strange, isn't it? Why do we love watching movies that are, well, difficult? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how master directors basically control our emotions and find out why our brains are actually wired to enjoy that beautiful, brutal ride.
So let's start with the big question. Why are we so completely mesmerized by this stuff? I mean, think about it. You're watching a Kurosawa battle scene or a super tense Tarantino standoff. It's more than just a story, right? It's hypnotic. It's like there's this deliberate design to just grab you and refuse to let go. So how on earth do they do it? And more importantly, why does it work on us so well?
Well, to get to the answer, let's start with a pretty bold quote from the man himself, Quentin Tarantino. He sees filmmaking as a language specifically designed to control what you pay attention to and what you feel. And that one word, control, that's the key. It's going to unlock everything we talk about today.
Okay, so if movies are a language of control, what's the grammar? What's the vocabulary? How are these directors talking to us, kind of manipulating us without us even noticing? We're going to look at two absolute masters who do this in totally different but just as powerful ways. First up, a true legend of visual storytelling. For the great Akira Kurosawa, the answer was super simple: movement. For him, if a shot wasn't moving, it was basically dead. He believed movement was the single most powerful tool a director had. It's what makes a movie and not just a painting on a wall, right? He wasn't just filming action, he was composing motion itself.
Kurosawa actually built his visual language by layering 5 different kinds of movement. Just picture this. You've got the wind blowing like crazy, a whole crowd of people surging forward, a single character making some big, dramatic gesture, the camera is gliding through all of it, and then bam, a sharp cut to another moving thing. It's like a visual symphony that tells the story, a lot of the time without anyone needing to say a single word.
So Kurosawa was the undisputed master of visual motion. But what if the most powerful movement isn't something you can see at all? A totally different kind of director, Quentin Tarantino, creates that exact same hypnotic control almost entirely with his words.
So what's Tarantino's big secret? Well, one of his go-to tools is something called the pledge. It's a really simple promise he makes at the start of a scene, a promise that something important or dangerous or just plain fascinating is about to go down, and that hooks you immediately. You're forced to keep watching because you just have to see how that promise pays off.
And he doesn't stop with the pledge. He builds on it by layering in all these other tricks. There's always conflict, so every single conversation feels like it has real stakes. There's subtext, where what people aren't saying is way more important than what they are, and then there's his mastery of suspense. He'll often tell us, the audience, something the characters don't know. It's like Hitchcock's classic bomb under the table, and suddenly a normal conversation becomes almost unbearably tense.
Okay, so now we've seen the techniques, the how, right? Kurosawa's got his movement, Tarantino's got his dialogue and suspense. But that just leads to the next huge question. Why is this stuff so effective? What is actually going on inside our brains when we're watching this controlled chaos unfold on screen?
Well, the first part of the answer is that we're not just watching raw brutality. In the hands of a director like Tarantino, it becomes something else. It's aestheticized. It's treated with the same level of care as a ballet. This raw violence gets transformed into a kind of visual poetry. And believe it or not, our brains are surprisingly into that.
And this is where the really fascinating field of neuroaesthetics comes into play. It shows us that our brains are literally wired to find pleasure in patterns and in predicting what happens next. A really well-choreographed fight scene can actually give you a little dopamine hit. Our mirror neurons might fire up like we're watching a dance. And that contrast of something beautiful right next to something horrific, like bright red blood on pure white snow in Kill Bill, it actually makes the beauty pop even more.
But you know, it's not just about appreciating the artistry of a beautiful shot. There's a much deeper psychological reason we actively go looking for these tense, scary, and sometimes even painful movie experiences. It goes way beyond just beauty and taps into something really fundamental about how we experience pleasure.
A psychologist named Paul Rosen has a great term for this: benign masochism. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. It's the same reason we eat super spicy food or ride roller coasters or even poke at a sore tooth. We actually enjoy small, controlled doses of negative feelings because deep down our brain knows we're totally safe. The threat isn't real, and that allows our minds to reframe fear as a thrill.
And as another psychologist, Paul Bloom, explains, this all comes down to the huge difference between suffering you choose and suffering you don't. When you decide to watch a horror movie, you're in charge. You can close your eyes, you can walk out of the theater. That feeling of control is the absolute secret ingredient. It's what turns a negative experience into something pleasurable. Without that control, it's just trauma.
So we know these techniques are masterful. We know our brains are kind of wired to enjoy them. But that pleasure brings up a really critical question. When we're watching stylized suffering on screen, especially when it involves female characters, are we watching something that's empowering, or is it something exploitative?
To really get into this, there is no better case study than the huge debate around Kill Bill and its iconic hero, the bride. I mean, she is arguably one of the most powerful female action heroes ever put on screen, but her journey is right at the heart of a very fierce, critical conversation. And you can really see the central tension right here. On one hand, the bride is an absolute icon of resilience. She's got agency, she totally subverts that old damsel in distress stereotype, but critics point out how the movie still plays by some old rules. You've got the camera's male gaze, the way violence against her is made to look beautiful, and the fact that her power is ultimately defined and shaped by men, like Bill and Pai Mei.
And this really gets us to the heart of the debate. Does a character like the bride truly break the mold and challenge those old patriarchal ways of storytelling, or does she just put a new, really cool-looking face on those same old tropes and end up reinforcing them in a different way? The movie definitely does not give you an easy answer, and that's exactly why this conversation is so important.
So at the end of the day, the language of cinema is just incredibly powerful. It can thrill us, it can entertain us, it can tap into the deepest parts of our own psychology, but it never ever exists in a vacuum. The very same techniques that are used to control our attention also end up shaping how we see things like power, violence, and gender. So the next time you find yourself completely captivated by a difficult film, maybe ask yourself, what exactly has this hold on me? And what is it teaching me about how to see the world?